Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /MaliciousCompliance, where people follow exact orders to spite someone. And in today's episode, it's all about horrible, power-tripping Karen bosses getting embarrassed by their employees. So if you've ever had a bad boss, you're gonna love this one. Guys, I hope you enjoy the stories. Hit subscribe if you're not subscribed. And as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So this is a story from long ago when I was working in a law office while attending grad school. The attorney I worked for had a reputation of being difficult to work with, but we got along great. I did have a problem with the office manager though. We'll just call her Karen. The woman didn't care for me because I got one day off a week to attend my grad school classes, and I treated the place like a college job rather than the career she'd made out of it. Part of the deal that got me a day off a week for classes was I came in an hour earlier than the rest of the legal assistants. The office manager didn't care for that, and she took it out on me by doing things like lecturing me for being a minute late in the morning or being a minute over on lunch when everybody else on support staff would roll in whenever and they would take long lunches to their heart's content. That's enough background. Now to the story. One morning, I get in, and I discover that all the documents I need from the shared drive to get to work are gone. Even worse, about half the folders from the firm's shared drive are gone. I figured I could go to the office manager and let her know what the problem is, but no one in that office was tech savvy, so I figured I'd take a shot in the dark. The solution was really easy. I went to the top level of the shared server, and I did a search for a client name. And sure enough, their folder popped up. And from there, it was easy enough to figure out that some technically non-savvy legal assistant, which was all of them, had moved half of the top-level attorney folders into another attorney's folder. A quick cut and paste, and everything was back to normal before anyone arrived. I figured I should tell someone what happened so it didn't happen again. So I went down to the office manager's office. I explained what happened and the fix, and that she might want to tell people to be a little bit more careful when dragging folders around. Well, the response I got was not one I expected. She looks me up and down, and her lips made this expression that she was not impressed. She then says to me, "We're not paying you to do IT work. How much time did you waste that you could be working on important things? Get back to work." Now, I tried again to elaborate more, but she just responds, "Get out of my office." So I thought to myself, okay, whatever. I wouldn't have been able to do any work with all of my work missing, but I wasn't poking that bear. Like I said, it was a college job, and I knew I was out of there when I finished grad school while she was a lifer. So I went back to my desk, and I get back to work. Fast forward a couple of weeks. I come in an hour before everyone, and I find the same problem. I do a quick search, and I discover that some technical genius has once again moved the top-level attorney folders into another attorney's folder, which meant half the office's documents were missing. Sort of a big deal for a law office that lives and dies by the WordPerfect file. So I grabbed some filing I needed to get done, and I spend the next hour or so working on that instead. Attorneys and legal assistants start to filter in. There was a 50-50 chance that they would be able to get straight to work, or they would find all their work gone. A quiet sense of panic came over the office that soon got less than quiet. The third-party IT people the firm contracted were called in at emergency rates because it wasn't their typical once-a-week visit. They're running a check of all the hardware, and with the office manager just hovering over them, raising hell about all the money they were losing, blah blah blah. Now, I despised the office manager, but I like the contract IT guys. So as I was passing by, I whispered to one of them that they might want to check such and such folder. Within 5 minutes, the situation was resolved. And when they realized how ridiculous the situation was, they just start laughing. A little while later, the office manager stops by my desk, and she starts laying into me for not telling her. This brought my attorney out to see what was going on. She then explained that I knew what the issue was and I didn't say anything. I just shrugged and I told my attorney that the last time I fixed the issue, she reprimanded me and she told me to not do IT work. I was simply following her instructions. Hearing me say that, she turns a couple of different shades of purple. My attorney, the one who was my ultimate boss and liked me, got a good laugh out of that situation and told her that maybe she should listen to me next time. That was the last of that because she couldn't say crap to someone if they had a partner backing them up. I left shortly after to focus on my school. Whenever I'm in town, I make sure to stop by to have lunch with my attorney, and I always swing by her office, all smiles, talking about how wonderful it is being my own boss, and not having to worry about the bureaucratic BS that takes up so much of her time. Guys, I freaking love that last part. Like, nothing like petty office politics to make a decent job miserable, right? And I'm not gonna lie, I kinda feel bad for that Karen because judging by how she treated OP, she's probably a miserable person herself. Like, why spend your day looking for things to complain about? Another thing, if I were in OP's shoes, I don't think I would have tipped those IT guys on what the problem was. Let them rack up the bill. That said though, I love how the attorney had OP's back in all of this, because it's nice knowing that despite having to deal with a crappy boss, another person who has power in the office is on your side. That makes things a bit better. So to start, I'm a mariner, and my position on the ship is mate, a deck officer. Below me are my deckhands, who are responsible for labor work, like painting, grinding, maintenance, line handling, cargo ops, etc. Above me is the chief mate, the second in command, and the captain, who's in charge of everyone on the ship. We're officers, and we do the planning for navigation, ship handling, training, payroll, etc. I work for a private company that pays me by the day rate, which is a 12-hour workday. I work 1 month on and 1 month off. Like most industries, we're undermanned and we can't hire enough to fill all the positions. Now, the ship I work on is even harder to crew up, mainly because of the captain. The guy's got a notorious reputation for being a jerk, so people find all sorts of ways to not come to this boat. And if they do, they only work 1 tour and they never come back. I joined this ship 7 months ago, and it's been hell working for this captain. The guy's a narcissist, condescends everyone, insults everyone, works us like slaves, never thanks us, just an all-around class act. You know, these types of bosses. They never let up, and they push you to the limit and just makes you hate work and life. With that said, I've been working 15, sometimes 18 hours a day because we're short-handed. I'm doing all sorts of work that's not in my job description. I've had to do cargo ops, handling mooring lines, maintenance, all in addition to my mate duties. I'm a very hard worker and a team player, and I never say no to work. Now, the thing is, we don't get paid for any more than 12 hours of work a day, so all those extra hours I work are unpaid. It burns me, and I frickin' hate it. But like I said, I'm a team player. I want to make sure it's safe for my guys, the operations get completed, and my clients stay happy, so I do what's asked of me. I'm also the cook, as we don't have an official cook on board, because this is considered a small crew and a small ship. I was cooking lunch every day for my crew, and many dinners too. Generally, you're on your own for breakfast and dinner. I was so good at my job that he and the chief mate passed their duties onto me, so they could just sit back and relax. The chief mates and captains have a lot of paperwork to do, but I was handling that for them too. Well, one day, I'm just completely burnt out with these 15 to 18 hour days. I get into a discussion about how the captain and the company is stealing my wages because I'm working more than 12 hours a day. I then ask the captain if I can show up an hour later than my scheduled duty. Well, once I asked to sleep in an extra hour, all hell broke loose, with him insulting me, calling me names, being racist, saying nobody wants to work anymore, blah blah blah. Just nasty behavior that shouldn't happen, but happens all the time in this industry. He then finishes the verbal beatdown with a cocky grin saying, "You know, you never had to work overtime. You could have just said no." Hearing him say that, I was steaming at this point, so I just replied with, "Okay, roger that." I called it a day and then went to bed. Cue my malicious compliance. The next day, I'm on watch, and he comes to work and he asked me, "What's for lunch?" I replied, "Nothing, I'm not cooking today." He then asked, "Well, did you pull anything out from the freezer at least?" I tell him no. So nobody had any real food for lunch. They all made sandwiches and ate chips instead. Later that day, he comes up to me and he says, "Hey, I need you to go finish painting the rescue boat. The guys are busy with other projects and I want this done today." I respond, "Well, Captain, since it's not in my job description, I respectfully decline." We then get into a little arguing match, but he concedes. The very next day, he pulls the same thing. He asked, "What's for lunch?" I tell him, "Nothing." He then asked, "Well, what do we have that we can cook real fast?" I tell him, "I don't know, Captain. I didn't check. Cooking's not my job, remember, so I don't plan on doing it." He then rushes to cook some whole chickens in an hour, and they come out really raw, and he pissed off the whole crew. Nobody touched his food. And this routine lasted a whole week until it was the end of my tour and I got to go home. I returned to duty a month later and he thought I would forget or let it slide. I indeed did not forget or let it slide. For the next entire month-long tour, the captain had to do all the cooking because the chief mate and I refused to do it. And the guy complained because he had to wake up early and prep the food. And here's the thing. I was already doing all of that when I was cooking, but I didn't complain. I enjoy cooking, but I was willing to die on this hill and I wasn't letting it go. I refused to let him win this battle. I didn't cook a single meal ever again. And to be petty, I made myself delicious food, but didn't share it. I refused any work that wasn't in my job description. And what's he going to do? Write me up for not doing someone else's job that isn't mine, or for not working past 12 hours? That's not happening. And you have to understand, at this point, I was physically tired, burnt out, and mentally drained from doing everyone's job and taking crap from him. I asked for a transfer to another ship, but I got denied, so I'm still stuck on this ship with this captain. But now he knows where I stand, and I still haven't cooked or done any extra duty since. And that's what you get for taking advantage of a good worker and always insulting me. Yet another instance of a bad boss learning the hard way not to mess with the person who keeps the show running. Like, I just don't get how some bosses don't see how much work a person is doing. Like, in my opinion, a good captain would have recognized OP's hard work and would have had no problem giving him the hour he requested off, right? But guys, with that said though, a lot of people say that maybe the captain was right when he said that OP didn't have to do any of that extra unpaid work, because there's a difference between being a team player and being the person who has the hero complex at work that ends up doing all the work without any extra benefits, leading to their own personal life suffering. And listen guys, when I first started working my construction job a long time ago, I was the same as OP. I was the hard worker, always up for any and every task the foreman asked of me, until one day, one of the guys I worked with told me, "Hey dude, he's taking advantage of you. You are going to burn out, and as an adult, you need to act your wage." And what he said always stuck with me, guys. And yes, it can go both ways, right? Because acting your wage and only doing whatever you're assigned might kill your chances at promotions or raises, etc. But a good chunk of the time, people are being taken advantage of, and there will never be raises or promotions in their future. Let me know your thoughts. So this is a long one, so get ready. I work for a construction company as an inventory admin. My job is to basically schedule counts of our warehouse and input the numbers they give me for inventory. Then try to see what the problem is when the numbers on the last count and the current count don't add up. Now there is a bit more to it, but I won't bore you with the specifics. Now, the problem with this job is when you've been doing it long enough and you're good at it, there's way less work to do. In the beginning, when counting one rack of 60 racks of material would take a few days, it was fine because I was always busy. But now that everything is in order, the entire warehouse can be counted in 3 days. That leaves me bored most of the time. So to fix this, I studied up on our cloud-based ERP service that we use for all internal and external transactions. I've become sort of an expert on it. Every single aspect of this company uses this ERP service to do their job. Timesheets, HR, payroll, accounting, scheduling, management, manufacturing, ordering, delivering, inventory, all runs through this ERP service. So it's very important that this service is up and running 24/7. Now, I became so proficient in this service that our VP decided to cut ties with our consultants of the ERP because I could do what they did, but better, quicker, and much cheaper. For reference, we were paying these consultants $5,000 a month just to be on standby if we needed them for some sort of problem that could arise from using this ERP. On top of that, we had to dish out even more money to fix those problems, depending on how many hours of their time was spent to fix said problems. Not sure what their exact rate was, but it's something like $200 an hour, and they often took weeks to fix anything, while I could fix the problem in time for my afternoon break. I never got an official job title or raise of any kind for being an expert on this service. The company just saw me being able to do it, and they let me fix things that happened, so they no longer needed the outside help. I wasn't too upset at this because it gave me something to do, and I was glad to help the company save money, even if none of that money fell my way. That said, skip ahead a few months. We now have a new warehouse manager, and someone in the warehouse messes something up in inventory by sending a bunch of materials to the wrong job with no records of it being shipped. We're talking $500,000 mess up here. In the same day, our ERP had an update that caused a bunch of bugs with the accounting department. So I decided to work on the ERP problem first because the warehouse F-up is more of a delay F-up and not actually stopping anyone from doing their job at the moment. While this accounting problem means our bills are not able to be paid. And you can guess what kind of issues we'll have if bills aren't paid. Well, the ERP bug turns out to be quite big and numerous, so it ends up taking me a couple of days to figure out. But I fix it before any bills are actually due and decide to take lunch a little early to celebrate the victory. Crisis averted. Now, if that was it, we wouldn't have a story now, would we? The new warehouse manager storms into my office once I get back from lunch, and the guy's livid. Apparently, the bosses were pinning the blame on him for the warehouse F-up. And considering that he's the one who oversees shipments and personnel in the warehouse, the blame's rightfully placed. The guy starts laying into me, asking me why I haven't fixed the problem yet. He's yelling and screaming like a child. I tried explaining that I was fixing this ERP issue, and I haven't had time to look at the warehouse problem yet. The guy gets even more angry, and he says to my face that it's funny how I have time to take early lunches but not do my job. That I'm at work to just siphon money from this company for doing absolutely nothing. Now, that starts to piss me off, but I held my tongue, and I kept calm about the situation. He then orders me to only do what's in my job title and to leave the ERP BS to the people competent enough to handle it, as I'm useless. Since this guy was technically my boss, I had no choice but to obey. I asked him to send me that in writing, and at that, he snarks and he storms back to his office. 5 minutes later, I get this email stating that under no circumstances am I to work on anything related to ERP unless it involves inventory. Cue the malicious compliance at this point. I do nothing but inventory from that point forward, knowing damn well that we would be essentially coasting until we hit a problem that I would refuse to fix. Sure enough, not even a week later, I get this email from HR that some sort of bug in the ERP system was preventing them from accessing payroll to pay employees this week. I reply with an apology that I'm no longer able to work on ERP bugs due to my boss, and to refer to the ERP system help guide for further assistance. Now, I knew the help guide wasn't going to help her in the slightest, but it was no longer my problem, so I wasn't going to deal with it. Skip a few days later to Friday. I checked my bank account in the morning before getting to work, and I laughed because there was no money deposited. That problem never got fixed. I hurry up and get to work, excited to see the chaos unfold, and what I was expecting was an understatement. When I show up to work, I see the entire warehouse staff of 50 people walking out the front door. I stopped one and I ask why they're leaving. And they replied with, "Well, I didn't get paid today, so I'm not coming back until I do." I then go to the office and I see the warehouse manager in a panic. The guy has jobs that need material and nobody to load it onto trucks or to deliver. That's when I ask him if he needs help with anything, and he just screams at me to leave his office because he's getting phone calls from the superintendents of jobs, asking why the material hasn't arrived yet. I pass by HR on the way to my office, and I can see a bunch of bosses huddling up over her computer with angry and confused expressions on their face. I guess they're trying to figure out the problem. I did feel bad for her because it really was something out of her control, but I knew she would be okay because she had been there for so long that they would never fire her. When I get to my office, I can see the VP waiting for me there. The guy has a very pissed off expression on his face. When we get inside, he demands to know why I didn't fix the problem in HR when she emailed me about it. I replied, I'm no longer allowed to work on ERP problems as it's not in my job title. He has the most shocked look on his face, and he asked why all of a sudden I had a change of heart. I then show him the email from the warehouse manager, and I could see the dots connect in his head. He immediately storms out, and I see him head straight for the warehouse manager's office. They were there for a few hours, but eventually, he comes back to my office. He seems calmer now, and he asks politely if I could fix the problem in HR, and if I could resume fixing the ERP if needed. At this point, I liked the relief of responsibility, and I told him that I would only do it if he put it officially in my job title along with a raise. His calmness turns to anger again, and he says, I can't believe you. He then storms out and returns to his office. A few hours later, he sends out a mass email that he's hired the old ERP consultants to fix the problem, and that next week, everyone would be paid the money that they're owed, along with the money they earned if they returned to work. Now this one surprised me, as he would rather pay over $60,000 a year to consultants than give me a few extra bucks an hour for better work. I think he expected me to change my mind and just do it for my own paycheck. But I decided to wait because I knew how these consultants were, and if they managed to fix the problem in a week, I would streak naked through the office. Most of the warehouse staff agreed to return, but they were still upset about not getting paid. Sure enough, next Friday comes around, and no one gets paid again. At this point, it's becoming a real problem, and the entire staff is becoming agitated. They have bills to pay. I even heard a bunch of the warehouse guys talking about some competitors nearby that they could go work for. At this point, I just considered fixing the problem because the warehouse staff didn't deserve to be treated like that. Maybe I'm the a-hole here for this, but I'm severely underpaid, and I can barely afford my apartment. There is no reason I should do the extra work for free. That same day, the VP returns to my office and he hands me papers. These papers said that I would be promoted to a newly created position that dealt with inventory/ERP upkeep. It would be its own department, and he would be my direct supervisor, and it also came with a hefty raise. All I had to do was sign and agree. I look up at him after reading the paper, and he had the saddest look on his face. He then said to me, "Please, just sign it." The consultant said it would take them weeks to get around to fixing it due to the high volume of clients they've taken on, and we can't keep skipping paychecks. People will leave. I happily signed it and immediately got to work on the HR issue. I managed to even fix it that same day. I freaking love this malicious compliance so much. You don't even know, guys. Like, it is always so satisfying hearing about a new arrogant boss coming in, boss around the guy who's been around the longest and knows the most, and ends up learning the hard way. And in this case, probably costing the company who knows how much money. And for all who are curious of what happened with the new warehouse manager, OP pops into the comment to say the guy just got yelled at. No demotion, no firing, nothing. I know, right? I just hope he learned from what happened, and moving forward, he actually does better. So I'm posting this mainly because I'm not a passive-aggressive type, and I'm in disbelief that this actually worked. Ever since I started my job a few months ago, my supervisor, who we'll call Josh, has been micromanaging me. When I'm the subject of criticism, which is often, I try to give him the benefit of the doubt and ask to clarify. What are your expectations? What specifically should I have done differently? Josh's responses are always vague, often something to the effect of, just do better. I even had a meeting with Josh and HR to address this, but to no avail. Yesterday, Josh comes to my desk to tell me that I need to dress better. Now, I work at a small company, and the vibe is usually casual. A number of people come to work wearing jeans, hoodies, t-shirts, and baseball caps. Now, I've never worn a hat to work, and I make a point of wearing a button-up shirt with a collar every day. This particular day, I was wearing a long-sleeve button-up, chino pants, and runners. Other days, I wear loafers and dress shirts that are tucked in. So I asked Josh to clarify. Should I be wearing dress shoes, a dress shirt, tucked in? What specifically do you want me to change? Josh just tells me I need to dress better and that I should talk to HR for clarification. So I go to HR and ask, what's the dress code? I get a standard answer: pants, closed-toed shoes, no sleeveless shirts, etc. I ask if I've ever worn anything to work that poses a problem. HR says, no, you're fine. Because I'm mad, and because my repeated efforts to resolve this kind of problem had gone unheeded, I decide to be petty. The next day, I show up to work in a full suit. It's one I keep for events like weddings, so it's fitted and I look really sharp in it. It's also wildly and conspicuously overdressed for the office I work in. I had several interactions with people coming to my desk to comment on my outfit and ask what the occasion was. When anyone asked, only if they asked, I told them that I'd been told to dress better. This was always met with disbelief. 2 people even said they liked the way I dress normally. When anyone asked me who the order came from, again, only if they asked, I said it came from Josh. Now, I was expecting to pull my little stunt for a week, just to prove a point, and then go back to wearing what I'd been wearing before. But word gets around the office fast, apparently, because the CEO, Josh's direct boss, came to my desk later in the day to tell me that I would be reporting to him now, and that he'd be having a talk with Josh about this and other issues. It's also important to note that I was Josh's only underling, so he effectively went from being a supervisor to just a regular employee. I'm on a bit of a high now. I think I'm gonna come to work tomorrow wearing a different one of my flannels. Thank goodness the CEO was reasonable and seems to really like OP. But seriously, what was Josh's issue with OP? Because to me, OP was clearly being singled out and picked on for who knows what reason. But whatever the reason, we all know that Josh flew a little bit too close to the sun on his power trip and the dude got badly burned. And in my opinion, getting demoted is much worse than getting fired, guys, because now Josh has to come to work every single day and face the people he was power tripping over. And I love this comment right here. This person says, dress for the boss you want, not the boss you have. Freaking love it. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /malicious compliance. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit the thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed, subscribe so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's in our /I don't work here lady, where a smug, entitled Karen harasses OP, dares him to call cops, and she ends up crying in the end. It's such a wild story, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.